Hello, my name's Laurel Papworth, and quite a few students have asked me about my social media framework for local councils and local government. So I thought I'd go through the 9 steps of writing a social media strategy or social media framework for those sort of organizations. So this video is really for social media strategists and admins and marketing professionals that work within the local government area or want to work in that area. It's an interesting and challenging area. So step 1 for a social media framework is you must abide by the algorithms, by the things that drive the engines that drive the platforms, and that frankly is psychographics and core audiences. So itemize in depth all of your psychographics, the people, the stakeholders within your area. Don't just write down the demographics, so retirees or families with kids or young singles, small businesses, business chamber of commerce type things. Don't just write down the single entities. Really dig in and write out the full core audience profile, how the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the LinkedIns and the Twitter analyze these people, and then make sure they get to see the right content. So for instance, for retirees, you will want your provincial wealthy, your smart townies, the whole thing. So whether they're well off or not, whether they're healthy or not, like hiking and trekking, or whether they're urban. There's about, I don't know, I guess there's 6 or 7 different types of psychographics for retirees. Just a reminder to my students, if you don't do this and you try to have one page to target everybody within a geospatial area, you will not reach your 25 or 50% engagement and your 100% plus reach. You will get 0.1% or 1%, because with such a large everyone style audience, the algorithm will work against you and will not put the right content in front of the right people, and that will start to damage your optimization strategy. So the first thing with a social media strategy, the overarching strategy, is who are you trying to reach? And it's in depth. Number 2, why are you on social media? What do you want to achieve, your organization? And then you have to flip that around, take each one of those tribes, each one of those different types of core audiences, and say, what do they want from you? Because your wealthy retirees will want different information from local government than your young, what they call thrifty families, struggling families. There's so many different things that council cover, and it is a very challenging space because it's a whole of brands, it's an everyone brand, and there is so much information to communicate, distribute. And if you aren't targeted in your comms, and if the audience doesn't find your information useful, if they find it boring, that's when trouble happens. That's when you really start to see your stuff being pulled out of the news feeds of whatever platform you're on. Which brings me to number 3. Number 3 is social spaces. You have to define in your framework, your social media framework, where are you going to be? And the best answers to that are, you need to invest your time where your stakeholders invest their time. So if you know that young mums are on Instagram or in Facebook groups, that's where you are. If you know that retirees use Facebook to connect to their grandkids and friends and family overseas, then you need to be on Facebook for them. If you know that the small businesses you're trying to target are using LinkedIn primarily, guess what? You're on LinkedIn. So once you've split up the tribes and your purpose for reaching them and the information that they want from you, now you can choose the spaces you want to be in. Invest your time on as many pages, as many Facebook groups, as many Twitter accounts, as many Instagram accounts, as many LinkedIn accounts, LinkedIn groups, LinkedIn company pages, whatever, as you need to reach those target audiences that you've set up in your stakeholder plan. With stakeholder core audiences, I would also recommend that you make a note to invest your time when they invest their time. So if you find that they're not on LinkedIn on the weekend, you don't need to schedule things on the weekend on LinkedIn. But some very specific groups are. For instance, solopreneurs often are on LinkedIn on the weekend, especially if they've got a full-time job and then they have a side hustle that they're looking for services. So get to know your core audiences, figure out their strategy for using social media, and invest your time when they invest their time. After you've done those three, who are you going to target? Where are you going to target them? Why do they want to engage? Why are you targeting them? The next one is influencers, and these are channels that reach the people you're trying to reach. If you don't want to build the direct channel yourself, or if somebody's already done an awesome job of doing that. So a classic example for this for councils is that they try to get people engaged on their own Facebook page, but sometimes it's just as easy to let the family psychographics know through the local school page. Ask the school if they will post something that's relevant to the families. Or if you're trying to engage with small business, high street retail, I don't know, changes to parking, something like that. If you're trying to reach them to get their feedback, then I really recommend that you look at the Chamber of Commerce or any meetup groups that they connect to. For instance, around hashtags. So hashtags represents communities of interest. So if there's a hashtag mums of insert your region group that are on that hashtag or that Facebook group, then I'm looking at a group of people and I want to work with them and build relationships so that I'm not just spamming those hashtags, those groups, those pages with the information that I need to get out. What I will say about influencers is if you decide to only focus on 2 or 3 main stakeholder groups, but every so often you need to connect to another stakeholder group, but they don't have a higher priority within your community, then it is better to work with the influencer groups, key influencers. Another reason might be that you don't have the core skills to build a community in that stakeholder group for a whole lot of reasons. It could be indigenous or religious or some other reason why you don't want to necessarily build your own community specifically around that subject matter or that particular community of interest. So you can always talk to the influencers in that community and build a relationship so that they're comfortable passing that information on. And there's a whole range of ways of doing that, but you wouldn't do that in the strategy framework document. You'd probably build that in your influencer document, your influencer and engagement calendars, and through your distribution campaign documents, not through your main overarching framework. That's how I see it anyway. You're free to do whatever you like. You do you. Campaigns can be a tricky area. People think their content calendar is a campaign because they've scheduled some posts to go up. It's not really. For me, for a campaign, and I've got a whole separate course on campaigns, but you're really looking at monitoring the original content creation, content distribution, working with the key influencers and the hashtags, things like that before you need them so that you're not just dumping stuff on them, and with the analytics to continue to grow the campaign. So there's quite a lot that's involved with a local council, small gov approach to a campaign within a geographic area. And there's some awesome tools out there that can help you with campaigns, but really stick within those 5. Analytics, for me, within a social media framework, I'm not going to set KPIs there because it's a framework, but I will talk about the kind of KPIs that need to be in each campaign document. So it could be the baseline where we're starting from, an increase in followers by this amount, subscribers, an increase in engagement by this amount, an increase in reach and then impressions by this amount, a increase in engagement from women 25 to 30 with 2 children who have kids that go to these schools, and whatever it is, you want to talk about it in kind of a general way. So I'm specific with the numbers in the campaign document, but at a stakeholder level, you just want to structure how the campaigns, what they should cover. If you've done the online course, and I'm assuming you're a student of mine, and so therefore that's why you're watching this, you will see how that is all done. And with the prototype, which I think is the proposal to convert something on the Esplanade by the local council, and they want to engage different stakeholder groups, you can see that as a complete campaign, or you can use it as a foundation for your social media strategy. It works either way. If you're not doing the courses online, doesn't matter, you still get enough information out of this little video, hopefully, for you to keep working on it. So, after campaigns, after social media campaigns, now we're looking at our different kind of content calendars and social media diaries. And what I would do with a social media framework is simply list them and the kind of things you expect them to cover, roughly, generally, because the actual calendars and diaries you're going to figure out elsewhere, not within the social media framework document. But the framework document covers what they look like. You know this, all the different kinds of diaries, all the kind of activities with it. Just make sure that the social media framework, the social media strategy mentions them. And the reason I say that is because I see a lot of councils that are content heavy. Everything is about the content and the other stuff is just missing from the diary. We can't have that. So figure that one out. The next section of your social media strategy, you're working on voice, and your voice needs to change for the different kinds of stakeholders that you have. I did say that social media for local gov and councils were tricky, and it absolutely is. And I think voice is an area that I see quite a bit of struggling, and it's because of the temptation to go to the formal press release voice and lots of photographs of the councillors shaking hands with people and content that doesn't engage because the voice isn't there. So I really want to give you some voice tips. These are the sort of things I do. I get my core audiences and list them all again. So your retirees, the different types, your different types of families, young families, single families, older families, teenagers, newborns, whatever. Young, urban, young, suburban, all kinds, whatever stakeholders you've got. And you've got different ones depending which council and local gov you're with. Write down the keywords of how you want to talk to them. Are you going to be educational? Are you going to be chatty? Are you going to be humorous? Are you going to, there's so many different kinds of voices, and the banal, the vanilla, boring one probably is not the one that's going to get you any kind of engagement on social media. By all means, stick with the corporate council voice if you do have a very PR sounding voice, but without engagement, without people liking, sharing, commenting, regramming, retweeting, then you drop out of the news feeds, out of the feeds, out of their environment, and you're really going to struggle to get the information out there. So, social media strategy 101, make sure your content is relevant for your audience, and a strong part of that is what kind of voice are you going to talk to them in. And it's not locked down for strategies, it is just trying to put together a brand voice for a whole organization. You may have one in your marketing docs, because the social media part sits underneath your comms strategy. So have a look to your comms strategy, see what it says and how you can apply it. Anyway, let's move right on. Kind of sitting with the campaign documents and also your different kind of calendars, I want to talk about rituals and rites of passage. And you'll have this in your content calendar, but just flesh it out a little bit more. Mark in the school holidays, mark in Mother's Day, Melbourne Cup Day, mark in any historical days that you have within your community. Again, with the social media framework, it's about setting the agenda so that each year people can go back to the original document and then look at their content calendars and their rituals and rites of passage and see, are there more things that should be added in? What worked? What did the community find interesting? What did they not find interesting? Concerts and anything that you have regular, like, don't just mark in Australia Day, but what you did for Australia Day, and then look at the online and the offline, I guess, impact of that. So rituals are things that happen hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. Every Monday, people go to work. So you might want to put up a message about preparing for your week at work, or changes to transport for the week, so everybody doesn't get a shock when they're heading out to work on Monday morning that for the rest of the week the trains are out being replaced by buses, or whatever it is. Anything like that where you can help fit into the rituals of your community will help. Rites of passage are births, deaths, marriages, but you could also look at graduation from high school, graduation from university, setting out congratulations to grand finals for football teams. These sort of things are rites of passage, so just mark them in as well. Sometimes add into the social media framework, but it could be in a separate document. It's up to you, but how you're going to integrate social with your website, because I find that a lot of times council has the website over here and social over here, and they're not integrating, automating, scheduling as well as they could be to really make sure that the website and social are working together in a hub and spoke format, something like that. And if it's not covered somewhere else, or you feel that it's not clear, and it won't be clear often, pull that into your social media framework as well. Without good infrastructure, you're going to struggle. It's all very well to say, I'm going to post up these number of things, I need to post twice a day, 7 days a week. If you're not given the content, if you don't have access to the email newsletters, if you're not given the tools to find this content to share, you're going to struggle. So make sure it's in there as well. I'm not listing the tools in the framework because they come and go and nothing's perfect. In fact, a lot of them only do half the job, but I definitely want to talk about that you do need tools and what the purpose of the framework is to have everything working together. You literally cannot have a social media strategy that does not reference the technology and IT strategy and the marketing comms strategy and the employer branding strategy and all the others, because social sits as the community within the middle of all of that. The last step is future directions. And strategies are often talking about forward moving. So even if you know your organization's not ready for some of the future directions, perhaps the big data stuff, analyzing big data, maybe not ready yet for direct democracy and engaging the community, 100% instead of 1% on everything, all the decisions that are being made. Not simply sending out surveys, but really pushing through big changes around direct democracy as opposed to representational democracy. Even if you don't feel like the organization's ready for that yet, I would still list out all of the key things that will be coming in the next decade, because you don't want your framework to be out of date in 18 months when some new key regulation or law or something changes and you're on the back foot because you don't have a future direction section of your strategy. If you're not 100% sure what I'm talking about, have a look around for futurists within local gov and council areas. Follow them, monitor them, make sure that you understand some of the things that are coming through and what other countries are doing and other councils are doing, so that you're ready if that change happens. And if you've got a forward-thinking council and forward-thinking councillors, somebody leading the charge, have a chat with them and get that stuff into the strategy and the framework as well, because that will make, I think, life a lot easier. So anyway, they're my steps for a social media framework, and you've probably seen my frameworks before. I've got some from 2008 and some from later on. So that's 10 or 11 years worth of social media frameworks for both local council and gov. And it's not the engagement framework. That's a different one. The social media framework, social media strategy are really taking you through from core audiences and then developing the rest of the steps there. In the next video, I am going to go through social media engagement for local gov and local councils. So if you think that that would be interesting to you, feel free to subscribe. If this is all you needed, that's great. Good luck with writing your social media framework. And do pass this on to someone else if you think that they would find it useful. So I'm just going to put up an end screen now with more information, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for your time.